Perth Yacht Club on the Swan River, host for the 1987 America's Cup, and in 1998, host for the first regatta in the Schneider 49er Olympic class series.
Okay, the first thing you notice about a 49er is how much the mast actually bends. The top of the mast is carbon fibre and fiberglass. The bottom of the mast is all aluminium. This is a spinnaker pole, it's all carbon fibre. It shoots out of the front of the boat automatically about 2 metres. Coming back, the spinnaker throat, the spinnaker goes in underneath that as you pull it down and sucks back down into this sock. Going back down the boat, you probably notice how clean it is compared to an 18-foot skiff. There's very, very little mess in the boat, which allows the crews to move very fluidly across the boat. And back here you have tiller extensions, very similar to an 18-foot skiff, very long, so you can actually control the boat from well out.
I think the thrill of racing these things is something that you can't get in any other class.
I prefer when it's really blowing. To be honest, it's more fun.
There's always that element of danger out there, especially when it's fresh to frightening.
Yes, it's a crack fleet of international crews, Australia, New Zealand, Finland, Austria and the Cook Islands. Adam Bieshel and Teague Seslowski, one of the favoured pairings, and also the only female skipper, Sylvia Vogel and Udo Moser from Austria.
And this is a course for the series, a top-to-bottom course, 800 metres. They zigzag up into the breeze, set their spinnakers down through the start-finishing gates. A choice of 2 bottom marks at the bottom of the course, zigzag up to the top mark a number of times and always finish under spinnaker.
We've had a testing week of qualifying races here on Matilda Bay, and it's Adam Bieshel in the Smith Kodak Express, best performed ahead of Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater, the 505 Andrew Escort, the second string New Zealand boat, and they're the 3 top crews as we have the countdown now for this opening race of the finals regatta. And with me, former world 18-foot skiff champion Rob Brown.
Well, as the boats come into the starting line here, Gordon's very bunched up at the committee boat end. You can see Finlandia there. There's the gun. They're off. Another gun, which means that it's an individual recall. Looks like Nokia. David Witt from the Cook Islands returning, has to jibe out and come back through the starting line.
Well, a great sailing breeze here on Matilda Bay for these 49ers, and also joining us in commentary is former Grand Prix 18-foot skiff champion Adrian Carlin. And Nokia not happy with her start, but now going out to the right-hand side.
Yes, it's very important to be aggressive on the start line, but obviously the Nokia just misjudged that a little bit. But now, because of that, they've been forced out to the right-hand side of the course to get clear air.
And here we go. The only female entry in this star-studded field is Sylvia Vogel from Austria, just ahead of the number 2 entry from New Zealand, Andrew Escort and Bruce Curson. As they come across to the right-hand side of the course, Nokia, who had to return, is coming out this side to get clear air, and most of the field coming across to follow Nokia.
On board now with Grant Kelly and Gary Goodall, local Perth crew.
Just looking at the crew work there, you can see the boats being kept nice and flat. The crew on the main sheet there with the rope in his hand is keeping the boat responding to every gust, which is so important to keep the boat flowing.
Dan Slater, former World Youth Laser champion. And he's pretty happy at the moment.
This is where all the skiffs can converge on the top mark. You can just see it coming in the picture there. Back on board, Grant Kelly and Gary Goodall. That's a nice tack. You can see the mate and sheet hand there coming in on the port tack lay line.
They've got the Boyd brothers there, number 2 Australian crew, just down below them. They want to make sure that they roll over the top of them to set themselves up for the top mark.
Well, surprise, surprise. Andrew Escort and Bruce Curson, the Kiwis, first round just ahead of Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen. But a very congested rounding as we now go downwind and through that start-finish gate.
Very important to get a nice clean set and jump away from the bunch. They'll fight each other all the way down this spinnaker run. Very important for these guys to clear their air.
Good work.
Still very composed on board the West Australian entry.
You can hear Grant calling Gary out onto the wing. Very important for the power of these boats that you get 2 people out on the wing as quickly as you can.
We saw Silent Night Beds there, Dan Slater setting and jibing, going out to the Riverside Drive side of Matilda Bay. They have to go down through the gate, so they'll all converge very shortly, and we'll see who's done better down this run.
Well, Adam Beechel's up into third place at the moment, just ahead of Scott Glaskin and Brian Evans.
Keep it on, keep it on. Not much I can do about that.
Yep. These guys are very composed on board. It's great to see it. Just trying to get their heads out of the boat, trying to pick the best angles, get into a breeze line and work their way down to the start-finish gate.
It's only a very short course and there aren't many passing lanes, and you can still see Nokia. They're still trying to bang corners and go out right out to the right-hand side of the course to try and pick up some time.
Every time they change directions, Adrian, the boats slow down, so they're really trying to pick the straightest course downwind, and usually you can do that if you get into a good breeze line.
That's right, you can see it's quite gusty out there, so the crews have to keep their eyes out of the boat to make sure they pick up those little zephyrs of breeze.
Grant Kelly and Gary Goodall in 6th place at the moment in this 11 skiff fleet,
as they go through the start-finish gate for the first time.
Keep it on.
Now that's Riverside Drive, heading out from the city over to the left, out towards Fremantle.
That's New Zealand #2 team. They're very interesting. They've only really just new on the circuit, but they're really performing well so far in this first race and through the qualifying series.
Great to see the finish up there too. They've been putting in a lot of work, doing all the international regattas, and they've certainly been enjoying their good form at this early stage of the series.
We're converging on the bottom mark, and Risto Tapper, the Finn, with Jukka Pirinen just ahead of Andrew Escort and Bruce Curzon, the Kiwis.
Well, you can see there they've done a bit of a mess up with that drop. They're very close to that mark. If they touch that mark, they inflict a penalty, and he slipped over. The crew's saving the boat from capsizing, but not the rounding they were after, and they've got to keep out of the road of all those other skiffs. They're on their port tack as Silent Night Beds comes round the bottom mark. A nice clean rounding by Dan Slater and Nathan Handley.
Come on.
So important to keep that boat flat coming into the bottom mark there whenever you do a manoeuvre.
Very, very close to that mark, and you see the helmsman there slipping off the wing, loses control of the skiff, tacks the boat. Not a real good rounding at all.
I think they tried to do too much, actually. Sometimes it's better just to tidy up and get out of the mark clean.
It's very unfortunate for them because they just put a very good first lap in. But here we are, looking at Adam Beechel and Teague Sislowski in first position. Adam Beechel stretching out as they round the top mark the second time.
Yes, well, the real battle is between the two Kiwis for that second and third positions at the moment. Escort and Slater. Hammer and Tom. Slater just in front.
You can't fault Adam and Teague's crew work there. They really have sailed nicely up that beat. They haven't made any mistakes. They didn't get a spectacular start, but they've really just sailed a great, consistent race.
You can see there the second-ranked New Zealanders jibing out, so they've done a jibe set. They believe that the breeze is better on that right-hand side of the course. And Finlandia, they've done a good job after that disastrous rounding down the bottom there, Gordon, to get back up into this, so their composure certainly back intact.
Yes, well, they led early, dropped to second, and are now back in fourth position, so they've consolidated well. But here's our leader, Smith's Kodak Express, Adam Beechel and Teague Sislowski.
Gary.
They were the front runners in the qualifying series.
Here you go. Come on.
Spinnaker set on board the West Australian boat.
Still back in 8th position.
Ian, I've got to get deep.
So they've been through the start-finish gate for the second time, coming down towards the bottom of the course. And they have that option at the bottom of the course to take a port or starboard rounding. Looks like Adam Beechel's coming in to the bottom mark. And there again, all the crews have got to be very careful that they come in, and Adam Beechel's decided to take a port rounding and head off towards the right-hand side of the course. And there's a difference in opinion. Dan Slater's come in and taken a starboard rounding and heading off to the left-hand side of the course. So plenty of options out there at Matilda Bay. Here's a good shot of the boys from Western
Come on,
Australia
get
getting
round,
that
that's
spinnaker down. You can see the
Jib on.
spinnaker getting sucked into that envelope up the bow of the boat as they come round and head up into the breeze.
Well, they're copping a lot of dirty wind. They're right down the back of the fleet at the moment. Silent Night Beds in second place. This is going to be a real go between the Aussies and the Kiwis. That's the way it's shaping. Dan Slater, who got his experience in the 18-footers. And that's where we are at the moment, tacking up to that top mark.
The Boyds have done well. They've pushed the right-hand side of the course, and after a good downwind run, they've managed to get back into third place.
But the man leading the way at the moment is Adam Bichel. He started out in the Flying Ants and the Flying 11s, but now he's in the high-performance 49ers.
The key to success in 49ers is consistency and keeping a level head during all racing. It's sometimes hard to do. The racing is very close and the results can be very mixed up. So even if you have a bad race one day, you've still got to look at there's every chance that it's going to happen to everyone else at some point during the regatta.
Well, Adam and Teague, they've been working very hard over the last couple of months, and they really aren't having many bad races anymore.
I actually did a little bit of coaching with Teague Szaszowski, a very serious campaigner, really puts a lot of work in on and off the water, and it's certainly showing here. But here we go. Silent Night Beds coming across on starboard tack, and Silent Night Beds has hit the lead. The Kiwis are coming back.
Silent Night Beds just went a little further right to the right-hand side of the course. Smiths didn't go quite as far, and you can see that they've gained here.
So Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater, picking up a nice little wind shift. Adam Bichel, Smith's Kodak Express in second place. And in third position at the moment, we have John and Gary Boyd.
Three great spinnaker sets there as the three leading skiffs head out towards the Riverside Drive side of the course. And to be able to jibe back through the start-finish gate, Silent Night Beds will be trying to coast or work their boat down. As you can see, Dan Slater just working his boat to the left there so he can jibe. Adam Bichel right on his transom there, trying to clear their air. The crews will be looking at the breeze, but also looking back towards the start-finish gate to pick the correct angle into the start-finish gate.
Being the third boat in this line here, they'll have to decide when the most tactical time to jibe is. I probably would have jibed a little earlier from the Boyds just to take a punt and try and get to the gate quicker and take the other two boats' breeze.
So let's check our order. Silent Night Beds, the Kiwis, Dan Slater, just ahead of Adam Bichel, the Aussie. In third place, Bort Longyear Wilson, John and Gary Boyd, and the other Kiwi crew, Andrew Escort and Bruce Curson, in fourth position.
Heading towards the start-finish gate. Big decision when to jibe. We've got the option down at the bottom, but with Adam Bichel hot on their heels, the heart rates will be working in overtime at the moment.
The New Zealanders, that right-hand side of the course paid for the upwind, and they're going back out there again downwind. I don't know what Teague and Adam are doing here because this other side's really not been paying.
They're probably just trying to settle things down a bit here. Go out, pick a nice angle into the bottom mark. They're jibing now. They do have the option of the two rounding marks at the bottom of the course. But yeah, it looks to me the Kiwis are just handling this race a little bit better.
It's always the case when you're in front that you've got the course in front of you and you've got all the options open. Unfortunately, Adam and Teague being behind really have to respond, defend rather than attack.
And there's the bottom mark as we see Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater. Looks like they're going to do a starboard rounding as they head back towards Riverside Drive. Going for the spinnaker drop now. As Adam Bichel are going in for a port rounding.
Over me, you give me no options.
Rounding the mark now.
By going over me, you give me
So
no options.
Silent Night Beds, first round, Adam Bichel in second place. Then John and Gary Boyd.
Gary.
And about to go round now, Andrew Escort and Bruce Curson.
The Boyds did a nice classic mark rounding there, both of them out on the wire as soon as they rounded the mark. Very good crew work from the Boyds.
On board the West Australian entry. A little bit of frustration creeping into the game. They just can't work their way through this high-class field. They're probably about 2 or 3 minutes behind the leading skiffs at this point in time.
So Bichel has tacked. Slater is standing on. Bichel in second place at the moment, but Slater's going to have to cover the Aussie. This is the last windward work, and then a rounding down to the start-finish line for the final time.
You can see Nicorette just behind the front two there. They've been hanging in there all this race. They got off to a slow start, but they've actually really started to catch up, and they've worked that right-hand side as well.
Silent Night Beds on your right. Closely coming together between Bichel, but it looks to me that Adam Bichel and Teague Sislowski have hit back, and there you go, the breeze all over the shop. They've come from the left-hand side. Hasn't paid in the early stage of this race, but certainly some great tactics there by Adam Bichel and Teague Sislowski. New leader. There's the top mark. Adam Bichel will be tacking very shortly to make the final approach to the top mark. But on the left-hand side of your screen, Silent Night Beds on starboard, has right of way. This is going to be very close. And the boys having to pull away behind Silent Night Beds. No incident there.
Adam Bichel has made a decisive move on this last windward work and has taken over the lead. And John and Gary Boyd are throwing down the big challenge now to the Kiwi Dan Slater in Silent Night Beds.
They've opened up probably 3 to 4 boat lengths lead over Silent Night Beds. The Bichel crew coming across on a final lay to the top mark for the final time. And the Boyds are going to be very close here as well. There's the mark, the final time. And Boyds have crossed ahead, clear ahead of Silent Night Beds. So this has been a terrific race.
Number 2 and 3 in Australia. It's going to be a great competition for that spot in the games.
Adam Bichel doing a jibe set. What will the Boyds do? Will they go the same way as Bichel, or yes, they're going to do a jibe set as well?
So it's a final dash for the line. Adam Bichel has the front running, barring mistakes. He should get there, but anything can happen here. Dan Slater has slipped back to third place, and John and Gary Boyd sweating on Bichel, hoping to force a mistake.
The ever important angle of that finish. The breeze is up and down, both in strength and direction, so even though Bichels have got a nice handy lead here, anything can happen, as you say, Gordon, and it'll really come down to who picks the right angle and stays in that breeze line.
It's always important to stay between the finish line and the person behind you, but sometimes you can't always control that because people will start to take risks just to catch up another place.
The final jibe. Adam Bichel and Teague Sislowski. This is going to be a great confidence booster for these guys. They've been sort of hot on the heels of the top contenders around the world, and this will certainly do a lot for their Olympic preparations.
You can see Adam on the back there just adjusting his trapeze wire. When you're downwind, it's always faster to be a little lower on your wire, and he's just pushing himself down there.
So the last formality then for our winning boat in this first race of the final regatta at Royal Perth Yacht Club, Matilda Bay. Second place to John and Gary Boyd and Dan Slater and Nathan Handley. Silent Night Beds hot on their heels.
This race really came down to the one who stayed in phase with the breeze. It was changing direction and also in wind strength. A big gain here from Bichel coming in from the left-hand side, closing the gap between Silent Night Beds.
And here comes Adam. He'll just come in from the left-hand side, and this is where he gained and took the lead for the last time.
So stay with us. We'll be back to wrap up results of the first race in the Perth Regatta in a few moments. So this is how they finished in race 1. Adam Bichel ahead of John and Gary Boyd. The Kiwis, Dan Slater in third place and Andrew Escort fourth. And Nokia, a big recovery from David Wetz. This week's 49er Skipper Profile brought to you by UCMS, leaders in customer management solutions. It's no surprise really that Adam Bichel is a leading 49er skipper. But even if you don't know your 18-foot history, the Bichel name may still sound familiar. And that's probably because Adam's brother Colin was an Olympic bronze medalist in the star class at Atlanta.
Collins' bronze in Atlanta was very inspirational. I was there at the time. I saw it all. I spoke to him during the whole event. It's the whole package of the Olympics, and the tradition of it is something very much that I enjoy. And the goal of campaigning for Sydney 2000, we're right on track at the moment. My crew, Teague, and I have only been together for a relatively short time, and in that time we've achieved some top international results, which I think is a great thing for us, because it only leads us to Olympic selection, knowing that we're right on track internationally for medal chances. Teague is exceptional. He's very motivated, still a little on the young side as compared to myself, but that's a great combination, I feel, for us. We're very good on the water. We go out there with a set pattern or set goals to achieve during the day, and we really buckle down to achieving that. We're not just aimlessly sailing around out there putting hours on the water. They're quality hours.
Does it leave you with time for a personal life?
Yeah, I have a quite an enjoyable personal life. Still living at home in my parents' house. I've got a very steady girlfriend, American Lainey Butler, who's a board sailor, and she's an inspiration to me as well, and she's great.
Do you see the 49ers as being the blue ribbon event at Olympics 2000?
I definitely see the 49ers, it's blue ribbon event for sure. It's on Sydney Harbour, it's got the background of skiffs, it's got it all there. It's exciting racing to watch. You know, you go to any event now and you look around the foreshores and you see everyone's focus is on the 49ers. 49ers is okay, heads out of the boat, let's have fun, let's go fast. But the tactics are still there. The One Design class, you know, it's a perfect combination of One Design racing and skiff racing in one small package.
Right up in the front of the boat is a little pocket where the spinnaker's stored. This is called the spinnaker throat. Because there's only one crew on a 49er, they've had to devise a system where he's able to pull down the spinnaker and store it all in one manoeuvre. Unlike yachts, where there's often crew down in a hatch pulling the spinnaker down, at the bottom mark, the crew on a 49er is able to come in, pull one line, pull the whole spinnaker in and store it here within seconds.
This week's Olympic class profile is the three-man soling. Neville Whitty and his crew of Joshua Grace and David Edwards won the 97 World Match Racing Championship in the soling class. Not a bad effort when you consider that match racing will be the discipline that will decide the medals come 2000.
Most of the guys that sail solings have done most things. They've done the America's Cup and Admiral's Cup and all the major things, and probably sailed other smaller Olympic craft, and added to that the discipline of match racing, which is really the most exciting aspect of our sport. I think whoever wins the medal will certainly have the respect of the yachting world.
Neville Whitty is already regarded as a world-class helmsman and instructor in virtually every form of sailing craft. In fact, it was during one of Neville's sailing camps some 10 years ago that he met two teenagers whom he would later take to sailing's highest level.
I remember clearly the first day they went out, it was one would go and then capsize, and the other would go past him and capsize, and it was more of a swimming event than a yachting event. But they were determined, they didn't give up as a lot of the other children did.
I think we've been very lucky that we were given the opportunity to sail with Neville. I certainly wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today.
We'd have normal lives, I think, at the moment.
As a teacher, Neville has brought me all the way through state competition, national competition, world competition. You know, we've won world championships, 2 world championships with him now, so I think it's a pretty good indication that he's a good teacher.
It's as important as the actual sailing, you know, the relationship side of it, you know, making sure that everybody's happy, that we don't get into each other's space too much, that we give each other enough time off, and that we help each other out. With 3 people, somebody is always down and out. It's like a family. You really have to work at making sure that everybody's as comfortable as they can be all the time. And when the pressure's on, just everybody has to pull together. When they announced the Olympics and the basic plan of what was going to happen, they told us where the ceremony would be taking place for our sport, you know, for our discipline. It's on the steps of the Opera House. So I've been there, I've stood there, I've had a look. I'm fully committed to winning that medal and enjoying that feeling. Have to win.
Royal Perth Yacht Club is the host. We're on Matilda Bay and we're ready for the start of race 2 in this 6-race final series.
10 seconds to go. Boats just jockeying for position. They want to hit the line with speed as the gun goes.
4, 3, 2, 1, start.
There's the gun. They're off. Nice clean start.
That was the crew member of the Austrian team just counting down to the start in German. Got a beautiful breeze here this afternoon. It's a sou'wester again, about 12 to 15 knots. Not the normal strength for a Perth sea breeze, but it'll probably build a little during the afternoon.
Nice start there from Adam Beashall. Hit the line with pace. He's got a nice little gap. Just jumped clear. Got clean air. Got Nicorette.
Bend, Brian.
And the only female skipper, Sylvia Vogel's had a great start, but this is Scott Glaskin and Brian Evans.
You bang off. Give us some power. Cunningham up. Give us some power.
On board with
live.
Sylvia Vogel and
here,
Udo Moser. She's known as Mounts. And you can see Moser wearing the head cap.
Good one here.
And they've tacked their final approach from this right-hand side, heading towards the top mark, as the other group, which went out to the left-hand side, steaming in. So who's going to be right? Who's picked the wind shifts right and who's been in phase? That is Goodall and Kelly just below Vogel and Moser. This is the 10th time. Who's going to round this top mark in first position? But Sylvia's doing a great job after getting gassed at the start. Has really got clear air here.
Sylvia didn't get a great start and she was forced out to the right-hand side of the course, and as it came out she got clear air and did very well.
Mounts Bay Sailing Club at the southern end of Matilda Bay. Beautiful sailing conditions here as all the skiffs converge on the top mark for the first time. These are these skiffs coming in from the left-hand side of the course. They don't have many options here. They're on a lay, and there is the top mark, the first mark. They have to tack as they go into the tack now. So it looks like the left-hand side has paid for the Kiwis.
Flying start for Escort and Curson.
Second position, Vogel and Moser from Austria on board. Spinnaker hoist. Going for the spinnaker sheet. Great set. There's knockout. Look at this. Where's that skiff going? He's gone around the mark the wrong way. All sorts of drama at the top mark.
Well, that's David Mann and Grant Rollerson.
Sit in, Brian.
Scott Glaskin and Brian Evans.
It's your jib. Quick, just get your jib.
Trying to build speed to get round this mark. A lot of confusion. Convergence was an understatement at that top mark.
Two more. One more. You there?
They've rounded in 8th position.
Come on, it's Gus coming. Let's go.
Behind Andrew Escort and Bruce Curson.
You can hear the skipper calling the spinnaker up the rig there. He calls it second spreader, first spreader, and then up to the top. So the crew then knows to just cleat it and get straight out on the wing and get going.
Sylvia Vogel and Udo Moser just trailing the Kiwis, Andrew Escort and Bruce Curson. This is a stunning performance by the Austrian, who's the only female skipper in the race.
Good to see that she's giving a good go there, because there's no reason. She's a good sailor and giving those boys a run for their money.
Coming down to the come back through the start-finish gate for the first time. Very congested. The whole thing that the crews will be trying to do here is to pick clear passage through to that start-finish gate, but also to be in a tactical position to round in the favoured position down at the bottom of the course. These skiffs here are coming in on port jibe. They don't have right of way. The other skiffs coming in are on starboard, so some very close contact happening here this afternoon.
David Witt and Rod Howell. Nokia.
The forward hand there will be watching the luff of the spinnaker roll in as they come through. This is the bottom mark. They have a choice to go round right or left. Looks like both of these skiffs are going to do jibe drops. Spinnaker getting sucked into the spinnaker tube. You see the forward end there working hard. He now has to go in and pull the jib on. That's Sylvia Vogel and Udo Moser, second position. What a great performance from the Austrians.
That was a good mark rounding from Sylvie there. She actually dropped her spinnaker a little bit earlier, so she was nice and tidied up, and then ended up a little higher on the mark. The other New Zealanders were a little bit sloppy and left a bit of a gap.
So 5 skiffs converging on this bottom mark, and that in the foreground is Nokia, David Witt. Well, let's just check our order. Andrew Escort and Bruce Curzon, the Kiwis, have the lead over Sylvia Vogel and Udo Moser of Austria. David Witt is pressing very hard. He's having a ding-dong go at the moment with Adam Bichel.
David Witt, the Australian 18-foot skiff legend and done a lot of overseas yachting, has now got residency in the Cook Islands. So a great performance from David Witt.
Apparently he speaks the native tongue too.
Vogel and Moser doing a great job out here. Attacking, that boat has to pull away behind the Boyd brothers. Starboard has right of way.
Well, Risto Tapper's up into 6th position at the moment from Finland.
It's quite a challenge for these Finns to come out here and sail in these heavy breezes. The Europeans are very good in the light stuff, and they're just slowly but surely getting on top of all their boat handling in these high-performance skiffs.
Adrian, what would be some of the problems that would be facing Sylvia Vogel adapting to sailing a high-performance craft like the 49er?
I think the major problem is weight, really. Well, Sylvia's about the same weight as me, about 50 to 55 kilos. Her crew member will be a lot heavier, about 90, and so that can sometimes make the boat a bit unbalanced.
Going into a jibe set, the Kiwis, Goodall and Kelly doing a fine job in the front of the fleet. David Witt happened to duck behind the Austrian crew. Sylvia Vogel doing a fantastic job. Nice bear away as they hoist the spinnaker. Deep breathing. Heart rate's up around about 160, 170.
And why wouldn't it be too? There's frantic action here at the top mark.
Adam Bichel, what a recovery. They're back into this race, just ahead of Silent Night Beds. There's the Finns. As the crew member hoists the spinnaker. This is where you're going to suck the oxygen in, get that spinnaker up, and while all that's happening, you've got to work out which direction you have to go.
You see the Boyd brothers there taking a punt out to the left-hand side.
I'm spinning out.
The Boyds couldn't really get
me back in control. Right, I go.
He lost steerage as they bore away there. One of the dangerous parts of the course, bearing away at the top mark. Spinnaker's up. Crew member sucking the oxygen in, pulling the spinnaker sheet on.
So Nokia 3rd at the moment. Sylvia Vogel in 2nd place, and Andrew Escort, our Kiwi leader.
They've come out to the right-hand side. They've opted to go round the left-hand marker buoy at the bottom of the course. But these guys are doing a great job. You know, they're ranked number 2 in New Zealand, but boy, oh boy, they're certainly showing Dan Slater and Nathan Hanley that they really want that Olympic berth.
You can see the breeze is filled in nicely down there, down the course. Shouldn't be too shifty up this work.
So the order: Andrew Escort and Bruce Curzon, Sylvia Vogel and Udo Moser in 2nd place, David Witt, Nokia 3rd, ahead of Adam Bichel and the Boyd brothers.
The majority of the fleet have come round the bottom mark and headed off to the right-hand side of the course, but Adam Bichel has taken a opposite decision there, and he's heading out to the left-hand side, so this could be a big move or a big mistake for the Bichel crew.
Quick, we're there. Let's grab your main. Main! Main! God! Christ! How many times can I say it?
Scott Glaskin and Brian Evans.
I can't pull it in from that far out.
Bit of tension on board this skiff.
You can see the crew there on the Curzon's boat looking around, seeing where the other competitors are and seeing if you can see any predominant wind shifts.
Going into the tack. Got to keep those wings out. Those wings touch the water, they stop the boat as they trapeze to right, adding leverage to keep the boats upright. These boats will capsize if these guys don't get out on those trapeze.
You notice in the tacks too, the crews don't touch the jib. They're self-tacking jibs. He only has to hold the main sheet through each tack.
So they just slide from one side to the other across a track.
Reigning world champion Chris Nicholson not competing here in Perth, but these 49ers are focused on Sydney 2000. They are the Olympic class high performance dinghy and competing at the Olympic Games for the first time.
So they haven't laid the top mark. They've had to do another tack, and they'll have to tack once more to go into the top mark. There they go. So a slight wrong decision there, or maybe a wind shift. It's very tricky up this pocket of Matilda Bay, but certainly have opened up a nice handy lead.
So those two tacks really didn't cost them too much there.
And here comes Nokia on your right.
Slightly overlaid the mark, Nokia.
Second position coming in to the left-hand side. The Austrian entry.
The Boyds have done very well, actually. At the top mark the first time, they were a long way behind. They took a flyer out to the left. They went around the bottom mark well, and they're slowly just eating back up into the top three.
Pulling up the spinnaker. On comes the spinnaker sheet.
Adam Bichel round in third place. Nokia in fourth, closely followed by the Boyds.
Dan Slater's made a little bit of ground up there as well in Silent Night Beds. And here's Adam Bichel and Teague Sislowski. They've done a jibe set heading back towards the Riverside Drive side of the course. And look at the boat speed. Perfect trim and balance there. You can see Teague there working the spinnaker. And downwind the skipper works the main sheet. Back to the leader.
New Zealanders have quite a big lead here. You can see they're not trapezing as low as the other Australian crews are. They're actually sitting up quite high on their wire.
Going into a jibe on board the Smiths Kodak Express. Nice balance, nice control, good acceleration out of the jibe. There's two marks at the bottom of the course, and this is proving to be a big decision-making process of which way to go around the bottom mark.
Yes, we'll hold on to your hats here. Sylvia Vogel is being pressured by Adam Bichel.
Bichel's coming in on starboard tack. The Austrian crew had to flag their spinnaker and go behind Bichel, so the Bichels have made a great move here, back up into second position.
You've got so many things to look at when you're out there. You've got the wind, you've got crew work, and so that's why it's important to have such good crew work, because then you can keep your eyes out of the boat, and Bichel has got such great crew work. They really were on top of their tactics there, and I think that's where they probably had a little over Sylvie, were able to get in front of her. Look at that breeze down the course now. It's a beautiful, consistent 15 knots.
For the Kiwis there, it's a little bit hard to work out what's happened there. They've dropped their spinnaker early, and they've come across, heading off towards the left-hand side of the course. It looked like they were wanting to go round and head off to the right, but I think they've lost a bit of time there.
Well, their margin is officially 9 seconds for Andrew Escort and Bruce Curson over Adam Bichel and Teague Sislowski.
So you've got the Kiwis and the Austrians going out to the left. You've got Bichels and Boyds and Nokia, David Witt going off to the right. And this is where it's a bit of a toss-up.
You're not pulling it through enough again. You got to pull that other one harder.
Still trying to work out their housework here.
Bend in. I can't get above this. Get in!
Well, they're still converging on that bottom rounding.
And here's the leaders, Escort and Curzon from New Zealand.
They've had their lead eaten away, but I reckon that was all at the bottom mark. They just chose the wrong mark. Both Nokia, the Boyds and Bichel all took the right-hand mark and definitely gained.
Look at that, just one small mistake, a wrong decision, and that lead's been probably, from about 12, 13 boat lengths, and there's the difference, less than 1 boat length. And Bichel's really holding the whip hand here. They're slightly to weather and really are controlling the Kiwis at this point. The pressure is really on.
There are 6 races in this regatta final on Matilda Bay in Perth. And Bichel taking out the first event. This is the second race of the 6-race final. And at the moment, Andrew Escort and Bruce Curson doing their best to hold Bichel and Sislowski at bay.
Bichel and Sislowski now going into attack, which allows the Kiwi to tack if he decides to. But they're heading off to the left, and Bichel and Boyd and I think 2 other skiffs are heading back towards the right. So the Kiwis now tacking
They're going out to the right hand to cover Bichel. It would be too much of a risk to put all your bets and go left hand and let the Bichels go out to the right hand side. Too risky. It's very important too with the crews that they're right locked together. It's that the weight is centralised in the boat. You can see that the legs are crossed over each other. It gets very cosy out there at times.
Who do you prefer to crew with?
It's got to stay in-house.
As Adam Bichel tacks the cover, going up towards the top mark. And here goes the leaders. That's a nice tack. Boat nice and balanced. Wings out of the water, boat accelerates. And there's the top mark. Let's look at the time delta. Have they lost time?
Well, remembering it was 9 seconds.
Straight into a jibe set. They're heading back over to the right-hand side where they came upwind.
So in actual fact, by standing on a little bit longer, not covering the Bichel and the Boyds, the Kiwis have opened their lead up once again. And we're back with the Austrians. Coming into the top mark. A little bit light conditions there. You can see their heads are in the boat. Got the head cameras on board their heads. Not very comfortable. It takes away some of your instincts, like feeling the breeze on your face as it goes in. But that rope they're pulling is pulling the spinnaker up, and also it pulls the pole out as well. Now going for the spinnaker sheet. As they come down to the finish for the last time, we're looking at Adam Bichel and Teague Zyslowski, who have had a dramatic recovery after a relatively poor start, and they've certainly closed the gap on the Kiwis as they cross the finish. And that'll be a great confidence booster for the Kiwis, but certainly Adam Bichel very consistent.
So that's a 1 and a 2 for Bichel and Zyslowski. And now the great battle going on for this third placing. Can Sylvia Vogel pull it off here?
John and Gary Boyd, the twins from Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, heading for the finishing line. There she is now, crossing the line. The only female skipper in the 49er fleet over here in Perth.
Definitely technique, you know, weight's really not a big factor once you're on top of it.
Boyd's coming in fourth. And there's David Witt and Rod Howell, the Cook Island entries. David Witt out of the 18-foot skiffs. And here's the incident where Adam Bichel coming through on starboard. We're on board the Austrian boat, having to flag the spinnaker because they're on port jibe. And that's where Adam Bichel came through.
Yeah, she should have really jibed there. She should have jibed on top of him and taken his breeze, and then that would have made it much more difficult.
So here's our points from race 2. And the Kiwis coming through with a terrific win. Escort and Curzon. Adam Bichel in second place. Sylvia Vogel third. And another very good effort by John and Gary Boyd. Very consistent. Now remember, lowest points are best. So it's Adam Bichel ahead of the New Zealander Escort and the Boyd twins in third place. But Sylvia Vogel delighted with her performance.
Well, we had a bit of a shocking start, and we decided we only can tack off and go to the right, which turned out to be the right decision to do, but it was a bit lucky the first upwind, and then we were first at the windward mark and pedaled on, like tried to keep the play.
Yes, in true Austrian spirit. Sylvia Vogel doing a great job, the only female skipper. But after the first 2 races of this Perth Regatta, Adam Bichel, Australia, sets the pace ahead of the Kiwis, Andrew Escort and Bruce Curzon. We'll see you next time. Spectacular central business district of Perth, Western Australia, nestling alongside the beautiful Swan River, mecca for tourists and also boating enthusiasts. And the Royal Perth Yacht Club hosting this Schneider International 49er Regatta. So let's recap the situation after the first two races. Adam Bichel, Australia. Escort, New Zealand in second place. The Boyd brothers third from Australia. Sylvia Vogel from Austria fourth. David Witt, the Cook Islands. And Dan Slater from New Zealand.
I think the thrill of racing these boats in optimum conditions, which is about 15 to 20 knots, when they're really starting to fly and you're just a little bit overpowered, I think, and you've got 20 boats that are all identical and everyone's going the same speed and it's bumper to bumper racing, I think there's nothing better.
And it certainly is on a course only 800 metres top to bottom. There's no wing mark on this course. They set their spinnakers and run down through the start-finishing line, and a choice of two bottom marks at the bottom of the course. Breeze 12 to 15 knots.
Right out. The build-up then to race 3 of this Schneider International 49er Regatta on Matilda Bay. We're in Perth, Western Australia. And with me in commentary, Adrian Carlin, and also Robbie Brown, former world 18-foot skiff champion.
Chip off, mate. Dave Witt's put himself in a bit of an interesting position here. He's a little bit early at 20 seconds. It was on the top of the line. Yeah, he's come in early. He's got to go around the back now.
There's the start. So David Witt a little bit slow, got caught above the committee boat there.
As soon as we can clear the boat, we'll tack.
His head cams are on board the Nokia skiff. You can hear the voice of David Witt.
He's saying to his crew that because they didn't get such a great start, they're now going to tack and go out to the right-hand side of the course. It's a nice sou'wester this afternoon again, 12 to 15 knots.
As Nokia comes across to the right-hand side, followed by the New Zealand crew, Escort and Curson, going into attack. Boats slow down into the tacks. You can see Silent Night Beds just down to leeward, and that's Sylvia Vogel just in front. As they come across to the Riverside Drive side of the course in Matilda Bay, they work up towards Royal Perth Yacht Club. The breeze not so fresh there. It looks like the breeze has dropped out a little bit of a light patch.
Come on. Still fairly early in the day. This is the sea breeze, the Fremantle Doctor. Sometimes it normally starts in the morning in the east and comes around into the sea breeze, and you can see it's still starting just to fill in. You can see it on the water up there.
As Silent Night Beds tacks onto starboard, as they approach the top mark for the first time, there's the Nokia skiff, David Witt and Rod Howell.
The New Zealanders did a little better. They hung on a little later before they tacked, and they've now got into the clear air.
This group coming in from the right-hand side of the course are on starboard tack, but it looks like the boats that went out to the left-hand side have certainly done better. David Witt not happy with his first beat.
Yeah, he's losing his cool a bit there.
Oh, left was the way to go. Nicorette nailed it.
As you heard it, left-hand side paid off.
So around the mark they go. Nicorette, Scott Glaskin ahead of Dennis Jones. The local sailors battling it out. And then Bort Longman, the Boyd brothers, and Adam Bichel in fourth place.
Very congested at the top mark as they hoist the spinnakers for the first time to go down the spinnaker run, jibing towards the start-finish gate. Silent Night Beds in fifth.
That battle's raging.
There's a collision between two skiffs. Bit of carnage at the top mark at the first time. We talk about convergence, it certainly was then. This is on board Nokia with David Witt and Rod Howell. You can see the bingle just to the left of them. They've avoided that problem.
Okay, there's carnage everywhere here. Just get the chute on. Well done, they're all in the piss everywhere. They're just here, the leaders. We can come back. Halyard's miles short. I know that bloke. Okay, we'll go get it.
David Witt very active there on the voice.
Well, finally some luck goes Nokia's way. They've passed 3 or 4 skiffs after that carnage.
Here's Dennis Jones, the locals from Western Australia, the black spinnaker. And Nicorette looking resplendent under the green spinnaker as they fly down Matilda Bay. Seems to be trapezing a little bit far aft from the boat. You can see the bow well out of the water. And that is Adam Bichel in Smith's Kodak Express with the yellow spinnaker. Really been the most consistent campaigner out here this far in this series.
And Nicorette, sail number 202, Scott Glaskin and Brian Evans, enjoying this third race of the Schneider Series in Perth.
There's a real battle on there between the Boyds and Adam Bichel and Teague for that second and third spot in the Australian team, and both their crew work. It really does just come down to the race on the day.
More pressure here, Howie.
As Dennis Jones jibes, heading down towards the bottom of the course. There's 2 marks there. They have an option to go right or left round either of those 2 marks, but certainly the local content here is certainly making every post a winner.
Okay, let's jibe, bloke. Yep. You all right?
Rod Howe
Nice
with
job,
the spinnaker sheet. David Witt complimenting his crew work there.
I'm with you.
As Dennis Jones drops the spinnaker gets sucked into the spinnaker tube, and they've decided to head back out to the right-hand course, as too is the Boyd twins. And Adam Bichel is going out towards the left-hand side of the course, so plenty of decision-making going on.
There's been no mistakes in crew work at the moment. Very tight roundings, and you can see how close it is. Oh, there's the first one, actually. Nicorette.
So Bichel's, Silent Night Beds and Nicorette going out to the left, as too will David Witt on board Nokia.
These boats move at about 8 to 10 knots upwind, so if you just stop for 1 second, you lose quite a lot of time.
You can see Adam Bichel and Teague Sislowski looking up the course. Perfect boat trim.
They'll be looking up the course to set themselves up for that lay line at the top mark.
And there they are, coming in towards, approaching the top mark. You can see the boats coming in from the other side.
So the Boyd brothers are coming in onto that lay line so that they're able to get into a line and go around the top mark in order without getting any dirty air.
No, we're on the wrong side. Look what Dennis and Boyd have got.
There's first. Jones.
Just gone to first and second and go
now,
left.
Boys have not got right of way here, but will tack inside the Bichel crew.
They've done very well here. Boyds have kept their place.
And Adam Bichel in 3rd position going round.
Sislowski in there hauling up the yellow spinnaker, has got inside the Boyd crew. What will they do? Will they jibe out? They'll be getting disturbed air off the Boyd skiff. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Bichel jibe out when he gets an opportunity.
You can see a big gap has formed in the fleet too. It's very important that you always get clear air because you can get very far behind.
There's the other protest flag. See the red flag on the one of the trapeze wires. So I say there's been an incident between the Bichel crew and the leader, Dennis Jones.
Don't exaggerate, I can see you.
Dennis Jones' jibe heading back towards the start-finish gate. Now the Boyd brothers can't jibe here because Bichel is on starboard jibe and was what we call got him locked out, but they'll jibe simultaneously. Nice jibe on board the Kodak Express skiff with the yellow chute. Not so tidy on board the Boydies. Maybe that Gary been a little bit off the pace, Gordon, with his sickness. It's really quite amazing he's even out there.
Well, I just saw him with his head over the side, so that probably would explain it.
That'd account for 4 boat lengths anyway.
But certainly this is a great race. Plenty of opportunities for the skiffs. The breeze is switching in direction and also in strength, and it really is a bit like a chess match. Who picks it right? Adam Bichel looking at a jibe angle here and certainly has done the better over the Boyds. They rounded within about a boat length or 2 of the Boyd crew, but certainly have done a better job down this run. And jibing now, heading towards the bottom of the course where they have the option of going around either of 2 marks. And Bichel's closing in on Dennis Jones and Sullivan.
Dennis Jones has done a good job. He's really always stayed between the boat behind him and the mark here and been in every gust. He hasn't picked a wrong shift down this run.
Dennis Jones opting to do a jibe drop, spinnaker getting sucked away. They're going to go out towards the right-hand side of the course. Bichel once again going out to the left. So this is very hard to call when they're going 2 different directions.
Well, it certainly adds to the excitement, and Adam Bichel has the chance here to really put some pressure on our race leader.
Bit of a jib flapping there, Adrian. A late drop on board the Boyd skiff, and here's Dan Slater and Nathan Hanley, the #1 entries from New Zealand. They hold the top position over there and certainly are doing a great job on the waters of Matilda Bay.
There's Adam and Teague really working the boat very hard and very smoothly.
This is on board Nokia. They come around the mark very quiet and composed.
Get us sailing.
David Witt.
It's always hard after a bottom mark. You know, you've had a lot on, you've been dropping the spinnaker, you're looking around. It's always important just to take a deep breath and then concentrate on the next leg rather than thinking about maybe some mistakes that you made in the last downwind run.
One of the golden rules is you should be planning your upwind leg on the way down. So you're, apart from actually handling the boat and working out how you're going to drop the spinnaker, but looking back up the course to work out your tactics. And here's a close crossing. And a new leader, Gordon.
Adam Bichel. So he's been favoured on that left-hand side of the course, and he has just snatched the lead from Dennis Jones and Simon Sutherland.
Dennis Jones just left their tack a little bit late there. They had it gone a bit earlier, they might have actually given Bichel dirty wind.
Yes, Dan Slater, Silent Night Beds, in 4th position.
That's a very good tack there. Both the crew went off the wing together and onto the new wing together.
And Bichel not giving an inch there. They immediately tacked when Dennis Jones tacked. They're staying between the top mark and their opposition. So very good tactics on board the Bichel-driven skiff.
Yes, Rob, he certainly has made his decisive move. Dennis Jones looks to be under a bit of pressure at the moment, not quite the same height and boat speed, but this opens things up for a challenge now from John and Gary Boyd, and let's not forget Dan Slater.
Looks like a skiff's in trouble in between those two, in between Dennis Jones and Adam Bichel.
Yes, it's BMIS, David Mann and Grant Rollison. They've come a cropper.
Yeah, early showers for those boys tonight. I think it'll be a long night in the tool shed for them, fixing that rig.
So we've got Bichel first, Jones tacking in second, Boyd's coming across, and don't write off Dan Slater. He's gone right across the right-hand side of the course, and he'll be coming back into this race very shortly.
Okay, you're right,
what about the consistency, though, of Adam Bichel? A first and a second in the opening 2 races, and now back in the lead here in race 3.
Adrian, their tactics have been pretty sound in this regatta.
They haven't taken any risks because they don't need to. They've got good boat speed, they're always high, they're fast, their crew work is excellent. So for them there's no point in taking flyers because it's good to put a regatta together just on solid seconds, thirds and the occasional win.
On board with Nathan Handley and Dan Slater from New Zealand. You can see Nathan there working the main sheet. And look, they've done very well too. They've come in from that right-hand side and they're rolling over the top of Dennis Jones. So Bichel leads and Silent Night Beds coming into second position. So a great windward beat for the Kiwis.
Yes, the Kiwis are certainly in the groove. They're on fire in this 3rd race after a disappointing 2nd race in this Perth regatta. But Adam Bichel around first. Dan Slater has taken over 2nd place and Dennis Jones relegated to 3rd.
They look a little bit off the pace to me. You know, they've got a very good start, put a very good first lap together, but the boat speed and probably superior tactics is just getting on top of the West Australian crew at the moment. Great shots here of the boat flying down Matilda Bay. Probably reaching speeds up around 14 or 15 knots. Probably going a little bit quicker than the breeze.
The skipper normally does the downwind tactics. The crew normally does the upwind tactics, so you'll see the skipper looking around here.
And Dennis Jones rolling over the top of Silent Night Beds, so that's a great battle going on for 2nd position.
Shouldn't have read him off so early.
I think he heard you.
Gary and John Boyd. This will be very similar conditions to Lake Macquarie, nice flat water. As we see Smith's Kodak Express, skippered by Adam Bichel, and some great crew work by Teague Sislowski, comes from Perth. He'd know these waters, as Dennis Jones jibes, and also Silent Night Beds.
So beautiful conditions on Matilda Bay. As we go down to the bottom mark, we'll then have one more beat up to the top mark and then a final dash to the finish in this 3rd race of the Perth Regatta. And Adam Bichel has rounded and hotly pursued by Dennis Jones and Simon Sutherland, and also Dan Slater, the Kiwi.
So we've got a split decision again. 2 boats going off to the left, 2 boats going off to the right. A commentator's nightmare, I might add.
See, the Boyds did very well over there. They came from 4th and are now up into 2nd place. They weren't involved in that battle, and I think that battle between the New Zealanders and David Mann slowed them down.
The breeze still up around the 13 to 14 knots.
Let's jibe, right to jibe.
As we go on board, Nokia, as they go into a jibe, Rod Howell going under the boom. He's operating the spinnaker sheets. Bit sloppy there, but they've recovered well out of that jibe.
Adam Bichel and Teague Cieslowski at ease with the world at the moment. They're looking up the course and just covering their opponents.
Dennis Jones there is slightly the weather of the Boyd, so they're still holding down second position. As Adam Bichel tacks, coming over to the right-hand side, they'll do one more tack as they approach the top mark. But I think the feeling on board this boat would be pretty pleasing. They'd be nice and relaxed. They've got a nice little comfort zone there, and they'll be just putting what we call a lazy or general cover on the boats behind them. But they'd be feeling pretty good at this stage.
The Boyd twins, and spare a thought for Gary Boyd, who's really been very ill during this race. But they've done another great job. They too have been consistent in the first 3 races of this Perth Regatta.
And there's our leader, Adam Bichel, got a very healthy lead. No mistakes now as they head down towards the finish. And a nice set. They've been very consistent, very cool. Nice conservative tactics.
But the real interest, we would have to say, is in this battle for second place, because you saw Dan Slater go past in the foreground, and Dennis Jones desperate to hold on to second place. But Slater, I think, is going to throw down a big challenge here.
He's actually done very well, come in from that right-hand side of the course, and he's got round that top mark just ahead of Dennis Jones. And the boys, they've just lucked out of here a little bit. They're back in 4th position.
Well, the Bichel name is a very famous one in Australian yachting, and Adam has made it a one-act affair here on Matilda Bay. This is the 3rd race in Perth, and they are steaming down to the finish line.
They've been very consistent, as you said, Gordon, and I think this will be a good confidence builder as they come to the finishing line. A great performance. There's the gun. They'd be pretty happy with themselves this afternoon.
Adam and Teague are very conscious about being labelled number 3 in the team, but they've clearly got potential. They're putting together good regatta now with some solid placings, and in the last World Championships they were in fact in front of Chris Nicholson for half of the qualifying series, so it's really going to be a tough battle.
And here's Dan Slater and Nathan Handley, the Aucklanders, coming through with a very slick second place finish, just ahead of the fighting Dennis Jones and Simon Sutherland, the local Perth boys. And there with the white spinnaker, the Boyd twins coming across in 4th place in this 3rd race in Perth. But all the honours, though, with Adam Bichel again.
Yes, a great victory to these guys, and I think they'd have their sights set now. This is a big confidence booster for them, and they'd be looking for a bit of a crack at the current world champion, Chris Nicholson.
Don't go away. We'll be back to wrap up the state of play here in Perth. Recapping on placings in race 3 of the Snyder 49er International Series. Bichel Australia, Slater New Zealand, Dennis Jones from Perth in 3rd spot, and the progressive points after 3 races, it's Australia 1-2. This week's 49er profile brought to you by UCMS, leaders in customer management solutions. The Boyd brothers, John and Gary. They represent the Belmont Club on Lake Macquarie in New South Wales, and these identical twins have a unique bond, both on and off the water.
Who's the older brother?
Yeah, me. Yeah, definitely.
So who's the boss?
The skipper's got to be. Yeah, I think I'd sort of rule the rooster cage. Oh, most of the time he gets away with it sometimes. We do have our moments, but I think it's the same as every other crew. So as an advantage, not necessarily, but it does help sometimes in just being able to communicate at a different level, I guess.
Gary, do you ever think you should be skipper?
No, I haven't steered for about 15 years and I definitely don't have any inclination to go back on the stick. So yeah, I'm happy in the bow.
Do you really believe you can beat Chris Nicholson?
Most definitely. I wouldn't be here doing this if I didn't think so. We're putting in, plenty of hours trying to bridge the gap between us, and we feel as though we're going the right direction. Preparation that we're putting into it has given us a very good edge in fresh weather through crew work and boat handling. So if we can carry that edge through for the whole regatta, we'd be most happy with that.
The class is so close that you've really got to be very aggressive in the way you sail the boats. One slip up and it can cost you, if you're leading, it can cost you back to 15th, 20th place. It doesn't take much to put you back in the pack, so you've really got to be very aggressive during your racing.
John, what sings loudest to you, an Olympic gold medal or a world championship?
The Olympic gold medal for us is the ultimate dream. We're putting in a lot of time working towards 2000, although the World Championships all become as part of that because you have to do well in the World Championships to qualify for Australia. And for us, winning a World Championship would be a great stepping stone to get towards the Olympics.
So Gary, the life of a professional sailor, is it glamorous?
Definitely not. It's a lot of hard work. The time that we spend in training and travelling, it doesn't leave a lot for the home life, and it does get hard. People think it's glamorous, but it's a lot of hard work.
So are you saying that you'd much rather have a job in the bank?
No, I wouldn't give this up for the world. It's good fun, and it's what we want to do. It's the chasing a dream that keeps you going.
The mast on a 49er is a long piece of aluminium tube. It's very light aluminium, so it has to be supported by spreaders halfway down and wires that lead down to the side of the boat. These wires also adjust the shape of the rig, and it's very important that they're set up the right way for each different wind condition. The top of the rig is very bendy, and it's set up that way so that it can respond to all types of wind gusts. Also running down the mast are control lines that lead out to the side of the wings, so the crews can adjust their rigs from out on the water. It's this good knowledge and good preparation of the way your mast is set up that is the difference between winning and losing.
This week's Olympic class profile is the single-handed dinghy for women, the Europe. Sarah Blank, the 1998 Australian Female Yachtsperson of the Year, got into a Europe after much success in the non-Olympic laser radial. Her home state may be Victoria, but as 49er designer Julian Bethwaite found out, Sarah recently moved to Sydney to be near her coach and to follow her Olympic dream.
I started in Minnows down at Blairgowrie on the Mornington Peninsula. We had a beach house down there, and I just got into it because both my neighbours were sailing and it was a summer holiday thing to do. I got a job in February with the TAB, and it's through the Olympic Job Opportunity Program. It's supporting me to live up here and to get me travel around the world.
So your training schedule, your 30 hours work, how many hours play?
I don't know how many hours. I'm 5 days a week on the water and in the gym in the mornings before work. So usually on the water sessions about 3 to 4 hours.
What are the big differences between this and a laser? I mean, what can you change and what can't you change?
Well, a laser is a one design class, and in Europe you can change the mast and the sails depending on the weight you are. Yeah.
And I noticed a lot of controls and a lot of strings on this boat. That isn't normal on a laser, so obviously you can fiddle that around a little bit.
Yeah, there's only one more control than on a laser, but they're a lot easier to adjust, so you tend to use them a lot more.
Okay, and last but not least, are these more fun to sail than a laser, or what?
I think they are. At first I was a bit uncomfortable, but I think that was just changing boats. But they're a very nice boat to sail. They sort of don't crash around like a laser.
And how did you go in the pre-Olympics, as they call it?
I came second, so I was very pleased with that because it was a good follow-up from Europe.
Who won that event?
Caroline Brouwer, the girl, she won the Worlds.
Okay.
She's from Holland, and third place was the silver medalist from Atlanta.
So that's actually a very, very good result.
Yeah, so...
You should be very proud.
I'm happy about that. To get into the Olympics, the selection starts next October. Then it's SIRS.
Yes.
And then it's our World Championships in Brazil in January, and that's when we'll know.
Brazil will be fun.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And so to race 4 of this 6-race regatta final, the Schneider International 49er Series. And Adrian Carlin, the breeze has died a little.
The breeze is definitely a little lighter this afternoon now. It's only about 8 to 10 knots. That makes it a little more difficult for the crews.
Get out of it! There's the starting gun. The Boyd brothers down here at the bottom of your screen got a great start, right on the line with pace. And we've got Nokia at the top. Went for a pin end start. David Witt suffering from lack of boat height, so he doesn't want to get above another skiff, so he's opted for that far left-hand side of the start line.
Bichel and Teague also got a nice start in the middle of the line there.
We're on board Dennis Jones's skiff.
It's all right, we want to go right anyway.
Talking about the breeze up the track. As one group of boats head out towards the left-hand side of the course. This is David Witt and Rod Howell, the Cook Island representatives on board Nokia, heading out to the left-hand side of the course.
Nokia is one of the heavier crews on the course. They're weighing in at about 165
Probably
kilograms.
one where that yacht is up there.
We're talking about the breeze, gust of breeze coming down the Riverside Drive side of the course on Matilda Bay. That's them there crossing ahead.
Further, you think?
Of the other West Australian crew,
Dennis
Kelly
Jones.
and Goodall. The important thing today in this race is to get your head out of the boat, to look up that course and sniff out those little gusts of breeze coming down from Royal Perth Yacht Club. We've got the city in the background.
And here Adam Bichel, he's the series leader. He's never made the Olympics. He's gone very close though, Adrian. Can he topple Chris Nicholson and his other rivals in 2000?
Adam and Teague are both very good in light airs, and in those European regattas that's crucial. I definitely think they can.
On board with the Boyd brothers now. This crew comes from Lake Macquarie, just north of Sydney, and very similar conditions to the lake. Talking about the breeze, you can see Gary Boyd there working the main sheet. They're talking about clearing their air.
Always a lot of trouble in the boat park telling those two apart, actually.
The girls don't seem to have too much trouble though.
Very easy on the eye of the Boyds.
As these group of skiffs are coming across to the right-hand side of the course, that's the Boyds there in the middle, and showing good height on Adam Bichel. Looks like that's Bichel's there, ducking in behind the Boyds. So they must be on a lay to the first mark.
Jibe set or
So
straight
the
set?
Boyds started
Easy bit of jib.
at the top of the line. They've stayed on the right-hand side, and they're clearly gained from being in that position.
Good communication. You heard the
There's more a jibe
discussion
in there.
about the breeze, but here we go, the top mark for the first time.
John and Gary Boyd, just a narrow margin over Adam Bichel, and they're leading quite a bunch there, headed up by David Mann, and the Finns also. Risto Tapper, not far astern.
Very tight at the top mark, and most of the skiffs have gone up that right-hand side
Jibe
of the
set,
course.
maybe, Simon.
And you'll probably see all the skiffs do jibe
Okay, I
sets
got the weight.
and go back down that same side of the course.
Go for it.
Bearing
Good
away.
gust on us to stay here.
They were on board with Dennis Jones. You can see the spinnaker pole going up. Bit of a slow set there.
Normally, the Boyds, for example, would take only 3 pulls and the chute would be up. Those guys took about 6.
And this is the Boyd twins out in front, going down that same side. The breeze was heavily biased over the right-hand side of the course. And a few skiffs have come out to this side. So a lot of decision-making going on out there, a bit like a chess match, where you're trying to get yourself in clear air. But the important thing today is to not only just sail your boat, but to get your head out of the boat, looking at the breeze on the water, and getting those tactics dead right.
Leading at the top mark's always a difficult situation. You've got the whole fleet coming right at you, and you've got a lot of defending to do. It's best try not to defend and keep attacking, increase your lead.
That sums up the Boyds regatta so far, really, because they have sailed a nice, consistent regatta and they haven't lost their cool.
No, he's on jibe back on us, so we've got to keep going, I think.
Downwind, clear air is definitely the key here, and they've made that decision to keep their air clear.
Just getting a little bit upset with a bit of traffic out there on Matilda Bay, but here we've got 2 boats splitting again. One going out one side of the course.
In these lighter races, it's always more difficult to judge the angles. They're heavier races, the angles are closer. The lighter races, they're much more obtuse, which makes it trickier.
The same conversation will be going on board the other boat, I'm sure. The boys going into a jibe now. Everything just slows down when the breeze gets lighter. You want the boat to be nice and smooth, you don't rush. Your body movement through the boat's a lot slower.
David Mann and Grant Rollison have moved up into third place at the moment, and Sylvia Vogel is fourth.
And the convergence happening again. Who's got it right? Who's picked the wind shifts right? Who's stayed in the breeze the best down this wind? And here we go. A nice jibe on board the Smiths Kodak Express. Now they're on starboard jibe. We're hearing the voices off this boat, the Boyds. They're saying they're looking good, so they're happy. And they're talking about the upwind leg, which is good to see, Adrian. They're talking about what they're going to do at the bottom.
Probably have to jibe on top of Bisho, though, I would think.
Determining which way they're going to go up the beat.
Then we've got to jibe on top of him and go to the starboard mark.
Okay, you'll see a jibe from the Boyds now. Now, you'll probably see Adam Beashall do a jibe drop here, I'd say, and come out to this right-hand side, which is favoured up the first beat. There they go now.
Not happy about going on this mark, but anyway.
And the reason he's saying that is because the breeze was coming from this right-hand side, they wanted to actually follow what Adam Beashall's doing, and Teague Sislowski coming out to this right-hand side definitely paid off the first beat.
The Boyds knew which side of the course they wanted to go to, but they aren't able to get there because they've cut their options by going to the wrong mark.
And folks, the lead has just changed.
Really?
This is on Dennis Jones's boat.
How far off the mark are we?
When you're back in the mob, it just gets worse and worse. Trying to find that elusive clear air is nearly impossible.
Yeah, right.
And the Boyds tacking now. They'll be coming back towards the start-finish gate, but they'll be looking under that jib to see what Beashall has done.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
This is classic light air stuff because all the boats get really close together, and the way you set yourself up for that bottom mark is crucial because you've got to get out in clear air at the bottom mark. They're just talking about the breeze coming down the course there. They're talking about the gust that they can see and whether they'll actually be able to get up to that gust.
So he's got that one over the shore.
You normally have the crew looking around because the steerer, it's very hard for a steerer to look around because the boats are so fine to steer. If you look away, it's like driving a car.
A lot further out too.
What's happening here is, why they're in indecision and talking about it is there is a possibility there is breeze on the left-hand side of the course, and that's why they're continuing on here. In difference to this boat, which is going across to the right-hand side of the course, tacking now.
We've got to go for
so the boats have gone opposite directions, and the convergence will happen to the top mark very shortly.
Beashall definitely has a boat speed advantage too, which makes it easier. We always say it's easy to pick the shifts when you're going fast.
Well, we've got a decent band bag. Yeah, you're right.
The old saying too, Adrian, you can be going very fast in the wrong direction. And here we go. Boys coming in on port tack, coming to the top mark. Beashall coming in on starboard tack. Who has picked the wind shifts right? Very quiet on board the Boyd's skiff, which indicates, and there it is, there's the crossing. Beashall opened up probably, I'd say, 10 boat lengths there, so this right-hand side of the course has certainly paid, but they're going to have to do 2 more tacks to get around this top mark. There they go now.
So John Boyd and Gary Boyd.
Let's go.
Trailing at the moment. Adam Beashall.
It's all over the shop.
So the Boyds have done 1 tack to the Kodak Express's 2 tacks, so the gap won't be that much difference here. Doing the jibe drop, so the breeze definitely coming off that Riverside Drive shore. You see the gusts on the water there. Good pressure. They've got very good vision, these 2 guys. They've got very good communication between them. There was no hesitation in what their tactics were going to be down this run.
They'd obviously been planning again. They know that they were winning on that right-hand side of the course and that they were going to go back down that way again.
So it looks to be a race in 2, a 21-second advantage for Adam Beashall over the Boyd twins.
Here it comes.
Now, there's an incident here. That boat can't tack because there's a rule which says a boat cannot tack within 2 boat lengths of the mark. They call it the no tack zone, and that's why that skiff went through and made it possible for the other 2 skiffs to slide around the mark in front of them.
Well, it looks as though a dramatic change has come over the race here. Perhaps Adam Beashal's fallen in a bit of a hole because the Boyds have thrown out a big challenge.
Just shows you that the gusts are very variable out there on the harbour, and certainly that gap has closed quite significantly.
Not really enough.
Coming down through the start-finish gate. Adam Beashall will be trying to find a spot here to jibe out, just waiting for an opportunity to jibe out. You can hear the Boyd saying, do you want to go first or let Adam Beashall and Teague Sislowski jibe first, but they still believe the breeze is coming down from that shore. They're heading across that right-hand side of the track, but you'll see a jibe very soon, and I think the Boyds have to go first to clear their air. There they go. So simultaneous jibe from Kodak Express. Nothing in this race.
That was a good tactical move from Adam there to keep on the inside.
They're actually getting a little bit of exhausted air off the leading skiff, and you can see the boys now just coming up on their hip just to clear their air. Very important that you get clear air onto your sails. The curvature in the spinnaker directs the breeze around the sails, and if you're in that disturbed air, the actual boat speed drops off quite significantly.
No, you got the mark.
The other one, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
We're on board with the Boyd twins. They're not laying this bottom mark. They're going to have to do 2 jibes, or 1 jibe and a jibe drop.
No, you're right.
Very important for them up this beat.
Okay, you go.
Doing a jibe drop at the bottom mark. Earlier drop by the boys. They want to try and do a nice tight rounding and get up inside the leading skiff.
Both excellent roundings there from the crews. Both of the crews were ready as soon as they rounded to be on the wire and looking upwind.
BMIS, David Mann and Grant Rollison in 3rd place.
They've done a lot. They've done well coming down there. I think they caught up a bit of time because the other 2 were tussling, and that might have slowed them down. So David Mann's done a good job there.
It's amazing how fast these 49ers accelerate in breeze. I think the 2 first and second skiffs were coming down in lighter air, and actual David Mann came down with a breeze line.
Well, the Finns coming down here in 8th position at the moment with David Witt in Nokia.
Now the Finns are claiming that they had boy room there, so David Witt has to give him room, and that forces him to go round the right-hand mark and losing a place out of that. So things aren't going right here for the Cook Islanders.
Okay.
You can see how light the breeze is. Everything's gone into slow motion out there on Matilda Bay. It's probably dropped down to around 6 to 8 knots, which is certainly means the crews have to readjust to those conditions. There, once again, the left-hand side at this particular point in time has paid off, and it really is a chess match for these guys. They've got to get their heads out of the boats and really get into phase with the varying wind conditions on this Matilda Bay course. You can see Gary Boyd there just having a look round, looking where the opposition is. They'll be looking up the course.
The breeze is strengthening as we get up the course. Should be up to about 10 knots at the top mark.
And Adam Beashall got a lovely cover on the Boyds, and you can see Dan Slater there skippering Silent Night Beds.
Look at Dan Slater, hasn't he? He's done very well.
All 3 skiffs heading out to the left-hand side. They can probably see breeze coming down the left-hand side of the course. And the old golden rule, don't get where the breeze ain't. Good tactics here. Sislowski and Beashall not giving an inch up this windward beat.
Rob, what do you think is the key factor in there? Obviously, they're sailing a little higher and a little faster. We could see a shot of all their rigs close together there.
Well, they certainly are going high and fast, and that just proves it. They've opened up probably, as I said, 5 to 6 boat lengths. And look at the crew work, a great spinnaker set as the boys come in, tacking around the mark now. Let's watch their set. Well, we've got a 13-second delta there. Now, Dan Slater has to give way. The boys are on starboard jibe.
So Dan Slater's caught up in front of David Mann there into third spot.
The thing which will happen here with Dan Slater closing so fast is the boys could go defensive and protect their second position in comparison to going out and fighting for that lead.
They'd be crazy to do that though, because they really need a win for their scorecard. They're very consistent, so second or a third wouldn't make too much of a difference. I think it'd be good psychologically for them too for a win.
Well, looking at their record so far in this final series, they were second in the first race, then 2 fourths. They're currently holding down second place.
Oh, I can't get to it.
And
okay, let's go.
A big number 1 would suit them very nicely here. But they have the job in front because there's very good loose cover being applied by Adam Bieshel and Teague Sislowski. Well, there's Teague out on the trapeze, and he's a taxation lawyer with Westpac Financial Services. In his own words, he loves nothing better than to slip out of the business suit into the wetsuit.
But at least he acts for the good guys, he acts for the taxpayers.
And here they are, coming into the finish. A brilliant performance by the most consistent crew, Adam Bieshel and Teague Sislowski. Great effort.
Well, that's 3 wins from 4 races in this final series. And the Boyd twins are going to repeat their effort in the first race. They'll come in second place ahead of the fast finishing Silent Night Beds and the Kiwis, Dan Slater and Nathan Handley.
Yeah, there wasn't much in that. The fast approaching Kiwis was an understatement. A great performance by them.
And in 4th place, David Mann and Grant Rollison in BMIS.
And this really was the turning point of the race, where Adam Bieshel could have lost his control here, and they hung in there, and they basically wanted to have that inside rounding so they could head out to the right-hand side of the course, and a great decision-making on board the Bieshel crew.
Yes, Rob, confirming those places. It's Australia 1-2, Adam Bieshel, the Boyd twins and Dan Slater. BMIS, David Mann, Scott Glaskin in 5th position. There's the overall point score after 4 races in this Schneider International 49er Series. Sylvia Vogel from Austria in 4th place. But all the honours in race 4 to Adam Bieshel, the America's Cupper.
We don't feel that we're going that quick most of the time. We're, just somewhere in the ballpark, but we're positioning ourselves well against the rest of the fleet when it's time to do it, and we're keeping our nose clean.
So 2 races to go in this opening regatta of the Schneider International 49er Series. We're at Matilda Bay, hosted by the Royal Perth Yacht Club. We'll see you next time. The gateway to Australia's west, Perth, Western Australia, and hosting the Schneider 49er Series. The Royal Perth Yacht Club, which was also host club for the 1987 America's Cup, is also in charge here for this International Schneider Series. And if we recap after 4 races, it's Adam Bieshel, the Australian, in 1st place. The Boyd twins from Australia in 2nd, Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater 3rd, and Sylvia Vogel from Austria in 4th place. But Australia 1-2.
Being brothers, some people say it helps. I think at the moment you just know each other that well that an instinct does come in sometimes, but if you're sailing with someone for a long time, you can pick that up. So as an advantage, not necessarily, but it does help sometimes in just being able to communicate at a different level, I guess.
And certainly communication ever so important on this 800-metre top-to-bottom course. The number of laps dependent on the breeze today, 8 to 12 knots, and a choice of the two bottom marks at the bottom of the course, and they always finish under Spinnaker.
So here we go for race 5 on Matilda Bay. Countdown for the start, and the breeze 8 to 10 knots.
Positioning very critical as you come into the start. They look very early. Great boat control is paramount to position the boat so it hits the line as the gun goes with maximum speed.
Boyd's going for that gap just up under the start boat there. It looks like they've got a very good start. They've set up nicely.
It's a clear start, very congested down at the leeward end of the pin.
A lot of boats late, actually.
Getting a little bit tentative. It's the critical end of the series, and Sylvia Vogel, the Austrian entry, the only female skipper, is returning. So I'd say they hit the leeward mark, and that's disastrous for their chances in this race.
It'll be very difficult for them to get out of this because they'll be in a lot of dirty air there.
As we've seen over this series, the breeze and which side of the course to go to is critical, and it looks like the main contenders want to go out to that left-hand side of the course, and these skiffs which have tacked away are basically clearing their air.
John and Gary Boyd looking to be in very good position at the starts. They're currently second in the series, and they'd love to break through for their first win in this finals regatta on Matilda Bay, Perth.
The wind this afternoon is that southwesterly sea breeze that you see in Perth nearly every afternoon, and I don't think it'll freshen too much. It'll probably stay around 8 to 10 knots.
Once again, we've seen the fleet split into two. The course is only 800 metres from top to bottom, and we'll see that typical convergence at the top mark and see who's really made the best decision in staying in phase with the breeze.
Well, it's good to see the Finns up there, Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen. They haven't had a happy regatta so far.
Yeah, but it won't affect them this race because this race is really looking to be very exciting. They're pushing hard. They're out on the left-hand side of the course with the Bischels and the Boyds, and that's developing into quite a battle over there. Out on this side of the course, there's only Dan Slater and a couple of the guys further back down in the fleet.
We've always had this indecision of which way to go, and because the course is so short, that it really is a matter of just clearing your air. And there goes the series leader, Adam Bischel tacking, and the boys tacking right on their bow. That's very close.
That could be a hard manoeuvre to pull off, actually, because if you do a bad tack, Adam could have just rolled in them, but the boys, yet again, pulled off a great tack.
And they're in that left-hand group, the top of your screen, as Sylvia Vogel, the only female skipper in this fleet, all the way from Austria, doing a fine job.
She's got a bit on, though. Unfortunately, that bad start's really put her behind, and she's got to sit in the dirty air of all the boys. I'm afraid she won't be showing them up in this race.
So that left-hand side of the course definitely favoured in this beat up to the top mark.
I think you'd be a brave man to pick that one this early, Gordon. We've seen in every other race that the breeze is flicking around that much. It's still a lottery at this stage.
You're on for $10, Rob. I'll stick to my guns.
And here we are, we're on board with David Mann and Grant Rollison. They're the local boys here from West Australia. And there's the group coming in from the right-hand side of the course, just in front of the headsail.
Yes, David Mann and Grant Rollison have had 2 8s to start with, then a 6th, and then a 4th in race 4.
Whilst they're local boys, Grant especially has been doing a lot of sailing overseas. He's been doing a lot of sailing in Europe on international 14s, and he's actually quite a tall guy. He's about 6.5 foot. So that always helps in these type of boats, getting that leverage out on the wire.
So the Boyd twins look as though they have those boats covered as we come up to this top mark. Adam Bischel pressing very hard.
And giving the Boyds a bit of their own medicine. He's just tacked right underneath them there and pulled off the same manoeuvre that they did to him a minute ago.
The Finnish crew having to pull behind the Boyd brothers there, coming in on port tack. Nothing in this race. Let's watch the Spinnaker sets.
That group have stayed together the whole way up this first beat.
Well, some great crew work there by John and Gary Boyd, their spinnaker was up faster.
Yeah. That was a fantastic set. It just showed you there might have been a little bit of a problem on there. Teague had a bit of trouble getting it to the top of the mast, but that's what it takes. This is high-pressure sailing.
You can put that lottery ticket in both our names, Rob.
And here goes the spinnaker set on David Mann and Grant Rollinson skiff. They're going to stay away from that skipper head, which is Nicorette. If that spinnaker touches that leeward boat, they'll infringe. But that was a great set.
It was a good set. I mean, it's good to try and roll those guys underneath, but you've still got to think about what's going to happen down the course, because they're now putting themselves out to the right-hand side and in some ways cutting off their option to be able to jibe inside them and maybe get back to the favoured side of the course.
On board the number 2 New Zealand entry, Escort and Curzon. Let's watch this spinnaker set. Spinnaker still flapping. Crew getting their balance now, and off they go. Most of the skiffs are picking this this side of the course. No one's jibed back into the middle of the course, which would indicate the breeze is still filtering down. But there goes Bichel jibing out now, heading back towards the start-finish gate.
So the boys have left their jibe just a little bit later, and you can see the Finns behind them too have just left their jibe a little bit later as well. I mean, you can't follow people in this race, that's one thing.
I think what's going to happen, the crews are going to work out where they're going to end up. They're going to be thinking probably 30, 40 seconds ahead and saying, where do I want to be at that gate, or where do I want to be at the bottom mark? Apart from keeping the boat afloat and keeping in clear air.
Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater seems to have cleared away from the main bulk of the fleet in about 5th place.
He's having a good battle there with Nokia, David Witt. David Witt's had a bit of a slow performance this whole regatta, so it'd be nice to see him get a good result in this race.
And look who's just behind the Boyd brothers, Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen, the Finnish crew, doing a great job. You can see the Boyd brothers there looking under the boom, picking that critical jibe angle there, and what a tremendous jibe by the Boyd. That was great crew work.
It was, but Adam won't let up. He'll keep pushing them, and in some respects it's good to keep jibing and putting them under pressure and hoping they'll make a mistake. And Adam's very confident in his crew work, so I don't think that would bother him to do that.
You're watching some great action on Matilda Bay, the Olympic class high-performance dinghy, the 49er. And it's John and Gary Boyd heading down to the bottom mark for the first time. Adam Bichel in 2nd place. And the Finns currently holding down 3rd, Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen. Then in 4th place is Daniel Slater. But options here, Rob.
Well, it looks like they've got an option to go around either of those 2 marks, and it looks like Gary Boyd and John have decided they want to come out to this left-hand side of the course. And there's Adam Bichel coming around, very tight manoeuvre, and that's so they can stay on the Boyd's hip and so they can avoid being gassed.
So John and Gary Boyd have a nice lead,
just let Whitty go,
only a slender lead
Okay, we're going for the right-hand
over Adam Bichel. And here drop the voices.
Whenever.
David Mann and Grant Rollinson, they're back in 6th place.
Well, here we are. We have got the Boyds coming up the middle of the course, and they're looking pretty good here. They've come back early into the middle of the course, coming up towards the top mark. And we'll just see how close they are, whether they've gained a few boat lengths or in fact Adam Bichel is close. But just looking at there's the top mark as the boys are coming in on port tack. And I think they've opened up a little bit here.
They really picked up a big lift there. They were steaming in the middle of the course and they've opened out nicely.
They picked up that left-hand shift. That's what got it for them.
But let's hand it to Adam. These boats are going basically the same speed. They are trying something different. They're leading the series. They've got a nice handy lead. Why not?
So the margin's going to be around 16, 17 seconds. 15 seconds for the Boyd twins. Can they pull off their first victory of this final series?
It's funny how the leading 2 seem to jump away from the pack. Back from 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, they tend to grind each other down, protecting their air, probably doing a few extra tacks around the course, and that allows the 2 leaders to jump out.
Dan Slater, he was the World 1994 Youth Laser Champion. They've moved into 3rd place with his crew of Nathan Handley. Nathan and his dad won the World Hobie 16 Masters Championship a few years ago.
Looks like the breeze has increased here, Adrian. Looks like it's around about 12, 13 knots maybe. both crew out on the ends of the wings, really motoring down here.
The wind's definitely increased because all crews are fully extended now. When we saw down the first lap, they were actually bending their legs a little bit just to take into account the softer breeze.
And here's Risto Tapa and Jukka Pirinen in the Finlandia vodka skiff. They'd certainly be enjoying these, well, ideal conditions out on Matilda Bay. And this is the 6th position, David Mann and Grant Rollerson. They just can't seem to get into the race, can they, today? Do you think, Adrian, that because the majority of the sailing is going on the east coast, these guys might be just missing out a little bit on competition? Yeah, I think that's probably the case. These guys will be, the local West Australian guys will be very good in the fresh stuff, very good boat handlers, but that little bit of finesse that they really need to get from really close competition, which you're only getting on the east coast at the moment.
Skipper John Boyd on our lead skiff, former national cherub champion with his twin brother Gary.
They look like they want that the left-hand bottom mark, so that means that they want the left-hand side of the course.
They've actually overlaid it. Actually, you saw them there having to go right out on their wire and point the boat up high and not keep it flat, just to make sure they could get close to that mark.
Which would indicate the breeze has gone round to the left, and that's why they've got to go out to the left-hand side course. But here we go again. Adam Beashel proves me wrong. He thinks it's going to go the other way.
Well, he can't really follow the Boyds, though.
You can see the dark patches on the water coming down that left-hand side. I think the boys have done the right thing here.
Here's Dan Slater approaching this bottom mark.
Nathan Hanley there doing a great job getting that spinnaker down. It gets sucked down the chute with a line which is attached to the middle of the spinnaker, and some nice crew work.
So looking at these three skiffs converging on the bottom mark, Risto Tapa, the Finn, ahead of BMIS, David Mann, and then Andrew Escort and Bruce Curzon, the second string Kiwi.
And we're on board with those two gentlemen right at this moment.
Oh, just do whatever, go.
Just deciding which way they're going to approach these two bottom marks. They've decided to jibe, doing a jibe drop, and they'll take this mark to port and head out towards the right-hand side. Very close to the mark. If you touch that, that's an infringement. You have to do a 360-degree turn, and that's slow for the race.
This is perfect conditions for 49s. It's absolutely beautiful. There's nice southwesterly sea breeze, 2 strings on the wire. It's just fantastic.
And it's catch-up time for Adam Beashel.
If I'm being covered by another boat, I usually try to say, okay, are we both doing the right thing here? Are we on the right tack and we're not having a big loss to the rest of the group? And if so, well, then we're happy to just stay there for that little while until we can look for a way out of it.
And certainly you'd expect that to happen on the final beat of a race. The Boyds are looking like they're going to get their first win of the series, and they certainly won't let Adam Beashel go out on an opposite tack to what they are. And we're on board the New Zealand team, Escort, coming out on starboard. Now that boat coming across is on port, has to give away. Oh, there's contact.
Come on, we're going to do it.
Great stuff. It's about time we saw a bit of biffo in this together.
Spin hard, spin hard.
Doing the 360-degree turn. That's the first time Escort's been able to get ahead of David Mann.
Take the main.
And they did it in big style.
And underneath, Scott.
They've got to keep clear of Nicorette. Very close there, or they might have to do another turn. Let's see if we can have a look at that replay again. Contact between boats. And here we go. This is a reverse angle. This is coming in on port. Going through the gate. Looking behind. Bang! The tiller extension and spinnaker pole. So that means that David Mann has to do a 360-degree turn.
It's the Boyds, John and Gary, coming up to the top mark. Leading Adam Beashel, Dan Slater in 3rd place, then the Finns, BMIS in 5th, David Mann, and then Andrew Escort, the second string Kiwi.
15 seconds was the delta last time around this mark, so nothing much in it. It's going to be a very similar time delta. Maybe a slight gain by the Beashel, but the boys have done everything right up this last beat as they head down towards the finish.
So yet again, left-hand side paid. And the Beashels, I think, will know now that they can't beat the Boyds, so they'll just sit on their tail and go conservatively down to the finish.
Yes, well, the Boyds have never been worse than 4th in the previous 4 races, and now they look as though they're going to crack it for the big one.
They'd be feeling pretty good on board this boat. They've put a lot of work in. They've basically been sailing the 49er since the inception back in 1996. And You know, the Olympic rings is what attracting all these guys into this series, and this is we talk about confidence boosting. We haven't got the world champion here, Chris Nicholson, but this is going to be a real big confidence booster for the Boyds and the Bischels, so when they do get back to each other, they're going to have a real good shot at him.
Yes, they are the number 2 ranked 49er in Australia after Adam Bischel. They finished 5th in the 97 Worlds in Perth and 7th in France in 1998.
Well, the Bischels have gone out towards the right-hand side of the course. They're trying something different. You never know, Lady Luck might just give them an extra gust or a change in wind direction which will close the gap, but I think the boys have certainly got this one wrapped up.
Dan Slater's just there, sitting there in 3rd place. He will get that quite comfortably.
So the order: John and Gary Boyd, Adam Bischel, Dan Slater. Finns still holding down 4th position. Risto Tapper, the skipper. So John and Gary Boyd salute the judge for the first time in the series. A very welcome win for the Lake Macquarie yachtsmen. They just shake hands.
Give each other a slap on the back.
Adam Bischel coming home in 2nd place. They've been so consistent. A 2nd is their worst finish in the 5 races so far. And Dan Slater, the Kiwi, now down to the line in 3rd place, ahead of Risto Tapper from Finland.
Yeah, Dan Slater and Nathan Handley doing a fine job in this race. They'd be wondering a little bit how they're going to get into the top places. They'd certainly be like to be closer and mixing it up with the Bischels and the Boyds, but you know, it's early days, and I think these guys will get a lot from this series.
Yes, Dan Slater, a former rugby player, a bit like you, Rob, in the Des Moines under-15s, but here they are, the Boyds, coming down for a fine victory. They were never in doubt, really.
Nice boat trim here. They're very smooth through the jibes. The secret here is to keep these boats bowled upright and sail on their lines for maximum speed.
We'll be back to confirm the placings and the standings in the overall Schneider Series. Back shortly. Confirming the placings on race 5, the Boyd twins from Adam Bischel, Dan Slater, Silent Night Beds in 3rd place, and the Finns coming through with a strong 4th, Risto Tapper. Progressive results then after 5 races in the Schneider 49er series. And remember, low points count, so Adam Bischel from the Boyd twins, Dan Slater, Silent Night Beds in 3rd place, Andrew Escort, 2nd Kiwi skiff, Sylvia Vogel from Austria in 5th place from David Witt. This week's 49er Skipper Profile brought to you by UCMS, leaders in customer management solutions. Dan Slater is New Zealand's 49er champion. He's been a previous World Youth Laser champ and an 18-foot Grand Prix runner-up. Dan is sure to keep the Trans-Tasman rivalry alive and kicking.
I think the thrill of racing these boats in optimum conditions, which is about 15 to 20 knots, when they're really starting to fly and you're just a little bit overpowered, I think, and you've got 20 boats that are all identical and everyone's going the same speed and it's bumper to bumper racing, I think there's nothing better. It's a class that is like no other Olympic class, and people have come from all classes. You've got Olympic medalists from Tornadoes, you've got Olympic medalists from 470s, lasers, fins, everything. It's a different game, and I think it's a lot tougher. The challenge is actually going up against that competition and trying to become the best in the world. That's what the Olympics is all about, in my mind.
Is it a disadvantage to you in terms of your Olympic aspirations that you've got a relatively small fleet in New Zealand?
Yes and no. It is a disadvantage in the way that we can't spend all our time in New Zealand racing because we'll get left behind for the rest of the world. On the other side of it, looking towards the Olympics, our trials isn't going to be out of 15 guys that are all going really quick, it's only going to be out of 4. So from actually getting to the games, it makes it probably a little bit easier. On the build-up side of it, it makes it a bit harder because we've got to travel. But I think to travel, it's not a bad way of life to travel around the world and sail against the best guys. Nathan and I are a great combination. We get on well. I mean, to live with each other sort of 6 months of the year, you've got to get on well together. We live in New Zealand, not too far away from each other, so training hasn't been a problem, and he's prepared to put in the commitment that I am. We feel we're on track with our preparations. We don't have a huge skiff background, and so it's all a bit of a learning curve, but we still have 2 years to the game. Ultimate goal in sailing would be to get a gold medal at the Olympics, and that's been a dream of mine since I was a young kid. I think after that, then we'll see what happens. Maybe to get into some match racing and sitting on the rail of some keel boats or driving some big boats where you don't have to run around so much maybe. We'll just see what happens.
Perched on the banks of the beautiful Swan River is the Royal Perth Yacht Club, venue for this regatta of the Schneider 49er Series. Established in 1865, Royal Perth is the oldest yacht club in Western Australia, but with this series is surprisingly holding its very first skiff event. Royal Perth is famous for its blue water heritage, and probably the club's greatest moment came in 1983, when Australia too won the most prized of all sailing jugs. For when Alan Bond brought the America's Cup to Australia, it was the Royal Perth Yacht Club that he called his own. These days, Royal Perth holds the Australia Cup, the only local event on the World Match Racing Grand Prix circuit. Foundation 36s are used to test the skills of sailor on sailor in what many regard as the sport's toughest discipline. This week's Olympic class profile is the men's Mistral sailboarder Lars Klepic. Lars Klepic won Olympic bronze in Barcelona on a Lena sailboard, but missed selection for Atlanta. With Sydney now less than 2 years away, Lars is one man who would love to get his feet back on that Olympic dais.
Barcelona has been the pinnacle of my sailing career so far. I ended up with a bronze medal there. The only thing I'd like to do now is go on to Sydney and do a couple better. It's home ground, so there's a little bit of advantage in terms of the wind and the water conditions. And I've been sailing out here ever since I was a young child, so that should be an advantage to me. I'm about to leave work and go full time, so I'm not going to leave any stone unturned trying to get that goal. Yeah, so for me, Olympics are all about working a couple of years and then training, competing, leading up to the Olympic trials and then hopefully onto the Olympic Games. So it's like a 2-year working cycle, 2-year sailing cycle, and you work sort of to pay for the sailing, really. You get to the end of the 4 years and you go, wow, it's been a great experience, but certainly I haven't got any money in the bank. In the first instance, it's easy. You don't need, when you're sort of in your teen years, you don't need your dad to help you take it down there. You don't need 3 guys to pick it up and put it in the water, and you don't need to rely on a couple of mates to turn up to go sailing with. And that's the ease of, that's the thing I love about sailboarding. And it developed to the stage where, yeah, well, I am good at it, so let's try and get better at it. Because of the unlimited pumping rule, it's very physical, and you can gain ground on your competitors by pumping. Therefore, you pretty much have to do a lot of it. Laser sailing's pretty tough, and the 49ers are tough. None of it's easy, but I think physically ours is the toughest.
So the countdown for this final event of the Perth Regatta, the Schneider 49er Series on Matilda Bay, and it's going to be a crucial race for Adam Bichel and the Boyd twins.
It's so critical to get out of the start in good shape. You don't want to get locked up. You want to go to the right-hand side of the course, straight out of the starting line. As they come in now, it's a clean start, but it looked like there was contact at the top half of the line there. A great start by the Finnish crew in Finlandia, right at the pin end.
In the middle of the line, there was a bit of a sag. The Boyds were late, and a few of the other little boats were late as well.
Adam Bichel had a great start again.
Dan Slater, the Kiwis, also started well at the pin end.
Nokia's tacking off there. They were late as well, and they've now been forced to push out to the right-hand side of the course.
BMIS had to tack away early, and he's coming out this way as well, so he might have been involved in a collision or something in the middle of the line.
Well, there certainly was a skirmish, and here it is.
On the replay, this is on board Silent Night Beds. BMIS is tacking. Spinnaker pole touches and hooks up the trapeze wires of Silent Night Beds, and that certainly would have slowed down Silent Night Beds.
The crew's got the main sheet in his hand. He's responsible for keeping the boat flat, responding to every gust. You don't actually adjust the jib normally.
So they go into the tack. Got to keep those wings out of the water, and they're actually trapezing off the wings, which are 3 metres from tip to tip. This is Beechel's, Boyd, and the Finnish crew, Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen in Finlandia Vodka.
Adam Beechel around the top mark. The Boyds in second place, the Finns in third, but they're converging with those skiffs coming in from the right-hand side. And the Finns could be in bother here.
No! Right. They had to pull away. They were coming in on port tack. Had to pull behind Andrew Escort. And here's the #1 Kiwi entry, and we're on board with Dan Slater, and those arms
come high.
Going feverishly at the spinnaker halyard is Nathan Handley. He deliberately comes down to leeward of the boat just ahead of him, just trying to keep his options open so he can have the option of jiving out if necessary.
Dan Slater in a good position here to attack the Boyds and also Andrew Escort.
Beechel's going into a jibe. A little bit, they were caught in some waves there, and the wing dug in.
They're all early.
Boyd's going now. We can hear the voice of Dan Slater saying they're too early, so you could probably expect Silent Night Beds to travel down here a little bit further to improve their angle into the gate. Here they go, into the jibe.
That was a nice jibe from there. They both left the wingtip together, and they both hit the other wing together, which is very important because you've always got to keep the rig on top of you at all times. The boats are very easy to capsize because you've got a lot of sail area up there. These guys make it look easy, but it's definitely not, and they've spent a lot of hours training just to get these manoeuvres right.
Really, it's a combination of strength and dexterity when you are moving through the boat.
And some of these guys, they're big, strapping blokes, but they're very light on their feet.
Well, Adrian Carlin, we do have movable wings on these 49ers. What part do they play?
The lighter crews are allowed to have their wings as far out as is possible, and the heavier crews, under the rules, they push the wings further in.
And an ideal crew weight around 150, 160
The
kilos?
best crews, Adam and Teague and the Boyds, they're all around about between 150 and 160. The fastest seems closer to 150 at the moment.
And you, as a lightweight skipper, say around 55 kilos, you'd have the wings right out, wouldn't you?
I'd have the wings right out, and I'd have a big bloke about 90, 95 kilos.
Someone like Rob Brown.
Probably a strapping, good-looking bloke at that. And back to the race. Here's Adam Beechel and Teague Sislowski. They're getting used to this position, Gordon, out in front.
Well, they have done a grand job, haven't they? They won the opening race, second in race 2, then a further 2 first placings before relegated to second behind the Boyds in race 5. Can they finish off with a victory here? The Boyds would like to change that and make it 2 in a row.
You can see there the lead that the Adam Beechel has opened up on the fleet. The other boats are tending to fight each other, and a few of them have had to jibe early. Now, as they do their jibe drop, they've picked to come onto this right-hand side of the course, so they've done a port rounding. And here we are, back on board Silent Night Beds with Dan Slater and Nathan Handley coming in very slow to this bottom mark.
So, Rob, what about tactics now for, say, the Kiwis? Do they go the opposite way to Adam Beechel?
It looks like they will, Gordon, but this is very interesting. I think Silent Night Beds should have given room to the blue spinnaker. That's the #2 and #1 representatives from New Zealand. It's all happening out there.
I disagree. I think Dan Slater was in the right there, but he only just pulled it off, and Escort was just too slow with his jibe.
The only thing is if he left him outside the 2 boat length circle, well, then Silent Night Beds is certainly in the right.
No, he's outside.
Well, the bottom line there is it's a disaster for Andrew Escort, but Dan Slater's had a terrific rounding and he's gone out to the left to try and challenge.
There's certainly no love lost there, but look at this gaggle of boats coming here. You wouldn't like to be back in this mob.
Yeah, I got it. That's the one I was saying I would. Woody's just tacked off on the other lay.
Interesting here to see Dan looking around, looking at the breeze. It's funny, some days the skipper is in tune with the breeze and you let that guy roll with the punches. In normal circumstances, you have the forward hand calling the wind, but Dan's doing a great job, and I like his aggression on the course. That was great. If he was in the right down the bottom, I love that aggression.
So we're working our way up to the top mark. It's Adam Bichel ahead of the Boyd twins here, John and Gary, and Dan Slater, Silent Night Beds, looking good in third place.
And haven't they taken some time out? They've done a great job over in that left-hand side, and they're coming through. They look like they've come through in the second spot, so a great mark grounding and great tactics out of the bottom mark.
Dan Slater's picked the left-hand side of the course, which paid up the first beat, whereas Bichel's gone out to the right.
What they're saying is that Adam Bichel is covering the Boyds, and this opens the door.
That's what I was looking at.
Good communication on board the Kiwi boat.
Yeah, it's good pressure line.
They can see a puff out here on the right-hand side now. They could lift even more and challenge Adam Bichel. Adam Bichel earns his living by racing big boats. He was a trimmer on One Australia in the America's Cup. He's narrowly missed out on the last 2 Olympics in different classes. He's currently ranked number 3 49er in Australia. He wants to change that come Sydney 2000.
I think that gap's closing by the minute. As they tack the top mark for the second time. And look at the Kiwis. Nathan Hanley and Dan Slater have done a great job. They were back in the mob. They were around about 4th or 5th down the first run, and they have closed the gap quite significantly here. And look at the delta. We're looking around about 10 seconds. Great job. Going into the spinnaker set. That's Nathan Hanley. Hoisting the spinnaker up to the top of the rig.
Go hard. Yep, you're on.
Bit of encouragement there by the skipper, Dan Slater.
Top marks, you've got to be careful as well, because there's often boats coming downwind as well as coming upwind. So as well as pulling the spinnaker up, looking around for the shift, you've also got to keep an eye out that you don't hit any other boats.
Just riding in the camera boat's waves there. They'll probably have to jibe out of there. They're very slow. The breezes dropped off a little bit there, Adrian.
It has. And they just got caught up in a speedboat wake there, which made them change their mind.
Still gone too far. Hasn't gone far enough, sorry.
There they're talking about how they've set themselves up to go to the next mark, and he thinks that Adam Bichel hasn't gone far enough.
And he looks very soft too.
Adam Bichel looks worried.
And the Kiwis throwing it at them. Australia versus New Zealand.
It's not the Bledisloe Cup, but it's the next best thing on water here. Matilda Bay, Perth.
Yep.
Dan Slater is looking terrific at the moment and throwing down a big challenge.
On the side, but I think we just got to stick because everyone's, you know,
talking about the wind.
Bichel make a mistake.
When they're talking about pressure, it's the wind, and
they're trying to push Bichel here. They're trying to force him to make a mistake in some of his jibing. Adam there is adjusting his height on the trapeze wires, because when the wind strengths differ, you'll quite often sit at different heights on the wires.
Silent Night Beds jibing a little bit earlier, just so they can have clear air. They don't want to jibe too late, or they get that disturbed air off the back of the yellow spinnaker.
The rest of the fleet's really separated out. The Boyds are all far behind there in third.
So Adam Bichel still in the driver's seat as we come down to the bottom mark for the last time.
The same mark we went around last time.
They want the right-hand side, taking a port rounding.
And I think the Kiwis have just said they're going the other way. Let's see.
Yep.
They want the other mark.
You're dead right, Gordon. Boat speed's the same, so they've got to try something different. And I think these guys are really on the job here this afternoon. They've got their heads out of the boat. There's very good communication between the two.
Really ease it a bit. It's cool.
Just easing the jib. That's the front sail.
Good. Just blow a little bit of back in the slider stuff.
Back to Gary Boyd and John Boyd. They want the right-hand side, so they disagree with Silent Night Beds. They're going out the other way.
When you go around the bottom mark, when you've been sailing downwind, you normally have let different things off to way that make the sail shapes different. So when you go around the bottom mark to go upwind again, you've got to essentially pull everything back on that you've let off on the way down.
Well, this is going to be very interesting when the two converge. Adam Bichel here and Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater, who went out to the left-hand side.
Coming back into him here.
And I think they're happy.
Yeah, they're confident. Dan Slater says we're coming back into this. And as they approach the gate, Silent Night Beds coming in from the left-hand side of the course.
Adam Bichel still got him, but certainly the momentum with the Kiwi crew.
I think it's going to be very close.
Boyd is here.
Nathan Hanley just lowering himself on trapeze.
Do you want another lottery ticket here?
I'll wait and see. So they're coming in on port tack.
The Kiwis have had more pressure on the left-hand side of the course. I think that's the secret to it.
So there you go, 10 seconds at the top mark, nothing in it at the gate. We've got a race on our hands here.
We're better to attack Bichel, I think.
This is Dan Slater heading out to the right on port tack.
Header.
Out here.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Yep.
They're just gone into a header, so they're coming back. They're going to attack this crew. And Teague Sislowski, what's he doing? He's gone in and he's jumping up on... he's trying to push the centreboard down further.
Yeah, they're in no wind, eh?
Yes, that's the voice of the Kiwis. They're in a bit more breeze on the right-hand side of the course. So they've had to really attack in this race and back their own judgment.
It's the old story, get into clear air, and on a really short Grand Prix style race we've got to get it out into clear air, so it usually means picking a side and getting out to a lay line so we're coming in clear air with maximum boat speed.
Well, they certainly are doing that. They're picking the breeze perfectly up this final beat.
Both crews are bending their legs and they've just gone in for attack.
So here's the vital crossing. Kiwis looking good.
Yes, they're certainly lifting nicely into another little puff. And I think they're going to cross ahead.
Bow on bow. Silent Night has right of way. Kodak Express has to give way or tack.
Yeah,
Moment of truth.
Them. You're right.
You can see that the skipper has the dip sheet in his hand, the front sail.
Interesting tactic. They've decided to tack early, and Adam Bichel actually pointed down at him, and that's given them a nice weather advantage. And they're trying to get boat speed up. They don't want to get gassed. This is going to be a great Spinnaker set. I can't wait for it.
Well, this has been the best race of the series so far.
Heading out to the right-hand side. This is where boat speed is paramount. When you've got a boat so close to you, you're fighting to hold the air, which is coming around the front of the yellow boat. They have just got clear air. You can see there, any further back, if they're displaced by any more boat lengths, they're going to get disturbed air and they're going to drop off the pace. And Adam Bichel just easing ahead slightly. They'll be tacking now. This is the final mark of the final race of the Snyder 49er series. This is going to be interesting tactics.
Okay, you want to grab controls?
Silent Night
Just
Beds.
bang off a little bit. Yeah. Hey? Yeah, for sure. Have a shot at it.
So Adam Bichel, first round, and the Kiwis are going to have a shot here.
They'll jibe out. They had a big gain out on that right-hand side, and they've got to go the opposite direction. Put the leader into indecision and put the pressure on.
Where are the Barons?
It's Russian roulette. Make or break for New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a breeze on the course, the side of the course the Kiwis have gone.
Adam Bichel just covering.
Don't like the angle on board the Kodak Express. They're lifting up higher, pointing back towards their opposition. And I say the Kiwis, now the Kiwis have got right away. He's got his tiller in the left hand, and they're going to clear. They're going to cross clear ahead.
Well, Rob Brown, you were part of the Australia 2 crew when we won the America's Cup. This is classic America's Cup style match racing.
This is like a boxing duel right to the end. And what's happening, Silent Night Beds has jibed on the port because Kodak Express has come in and jibed on him and given him foul air. So now they'll come back together. You'll see Adam Bichel throw another one back at them. But the thing is, they're on port tack at the moment, which means they don't have right of way. So each time they come together, now Silent Night Beds has jibed. He has right of way on starboard jibe. Not a real good jibe, I might add. Silent Night Beds has right of way. Yellow Spinnaker has to avoid a collision.
Nathan's getting tired too, you can hear him. It's a lot of sheet you've got to pull in every time you jibe. They've got them though.
Come on, baby, send it. Go, you good thing.
Go, you good thing was the call from Dan Slater. And they have done it, I think.
I think he's broken through. He's getting air around the front of the Yellow Spinnaker. So Adam left the jibe just a fraction too late, and the Kiwis charging towards the line. What a great race. This has been a terrific race to commentate, I must say.
It's a toss-up here whether the Kiwis go straight to the finish. Yeah, that's it. They're going straight through. They could have jibed and gone the other way to the line.
Okay, Dan Slater has done it at the death over Adam Bichel.
Good one, Roddy.
Well, that was a classic performance from the Kiwis in how to come from behind.
In the helmet.
They were back in 5th position at the first lap, and to come through in this high calibre fleet is an incredible performance by the Kiwis.
Let's just hope our working out of
They've been very consistent, Adrian. They went for a swim in race 2, but otherwise no further back than 3rd in the 6 races.
They have been consistent, and that should put them in 2nd in the regatta. The boys have just come over in 3rd, and that'll seal their 3rd place in the regatta too.
Well, what a marvellous performance. There's the 2nd Kiwi boat, Andrew Escort and Bruce Curzon. They've come through with a very creditable performance in 4th place. And that's the way they started the regatta, with a 4th and then a 1st and then a couple of bad races in 3 and 4.
Excellent upwind performance by the Kiwis. Saw them close the gap on the Bichel-Sislowski crew, and that took them to a position where they could have a drag race to the finish.
Sealing the deal here. They've just pulled out in front of Adam and straight to the finish. Well done to them.
They certainly weren't silent knights when they crossed the line. Plenty of celebration for Dan Slater, Adam Bichel in 2nd place, and the Boyds in 3rd. And New Zealand's Andrew Escort coming home in 4th position.
And the pressure came down, we went back to attack them. They came back, jibed on top of us. Fortunately, we weren't on the lay line at that stage when we went back to attack them. And so we jibed back again and had another shot at it.
So, Nate, how much of that was your call?
Oh, it was a bit. I sort of, same as Dan, we had nothing to lose. Yeah. You know, we had to get the boardies in between us. And I saw a bit of pressure, and I thought, why not, just go for it.
He certainly did. He's a plumber and drain layer by profession, but we'd know where he'd rather be, especially after that performance. Adam Bichel, Dan Slater in 2nd place, the Boyds in 3rd. But certainly the champagne corks popping for Adam Bichel.
We're very excited. Teague and I have put a lot of hard work into getting to where we are now. It's good to see it come off on the water and on the scoreboard at the end of a regatta.
Heaps of great action on the next episode of the Snyder 49er Series. And Melbourne will host the 99 World Sailing Championships down on beautiful Port Phillip Bay. From the 6th to the 17th of January, the world's best sailors will do battle for the sport's penultimate trophy in a timely lead-up to the Olympics. Matilda Bay on the beautiful Swan River in Perth, proving an ideal venue for the opening regatta of the Snyder 49er Series. Thanks to Adrian Carlin and also Rob Brown. We now look forward to Brisbane, a crack international fleet there. See you next time.